I've got a golden ticket.
That's a winner!
Good Saturday morning, everyone. My name is David Scharf, and I am here at DraftKings at Casino Queen. And I gave everyone but Clemson John this Saturday off for Thanksgiving weekend. I hope everyone had a wonderful meal, got to enjoy some football. I know myself, I had a wonderful day with the family. So we are going to play a couple clips that you may or may not have seen. We're going to start with Earl Barron, interview with Earl Barron. We're going to play a little bit of that this morning. We're also going to do an interview with Evan Elder. We're going to show that one, a little bit of that one that we did earlier this month. And then we're going to get to Clemson John's picks for the day. We did get a chance to record yesterday with Clemson John. He is in Death Valley going to the South Carolina Clemson game and with his family. And we'll talk a little bit about Thanksgiving and how he did. So let's get to it. Earl Barron's up.
Morning.
Good morning, David. Good morning.
John, what a special guest we have here this morning. So excited to have him, right?
Yeah.
Let's get right into it. Let's talk a little college. Let's talk about your career a little bit.
Yeah,
Earl.
what made you go to Memphis of all places, Earl?
Well, it's close to home. I'm from small town, a little south of Memphis, probably an hour south of Memphis, Clarkston, Mississippi. And I kind of had my hopes and dreams of going to Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Went to all their basketball camps, knew all their teams since I was 10th grade. And by the time my senior year came, I went on my little growth spurt, and I had a lot of offers, but I really wasn't sure where I wanted to go. And I kind of waited too late, the signing period, which I didn't know anything about until it was too late, like I said. And they didn't have any scholarships. And Ole Miss didn't have any scholarships. They wanted me to go to prep school, but, I was a pretty smart kid in high school.
So prep school, that's where you go a
just
year.
Do an extra year, basically,
yeah.
And you just play basketball.
Right.
And talked it over with my mom, and she was like, you're too smart for that. You just go to college, find you somewhere. Done with that, we went out to the JUCO. We played a little pickup, and they were like, hey, how are your grades? I was like, hey, I made a 22 ECT, and they was like, hey, consider us. We'll take you. And I ended up signing there, and at the end of the day, I was like, you know what, Memphis is actually a closer drive than Oxford and Starkville. So, it worked out. Wouldn't change it for the world, man. It's a, cool city. Able to drive home on the weekends, visit my family. And
how far were you from Memphis?
Hour.
An hour from Memphis. Okay.
Hour drive. So
that works out perfect then.
Perfectly.
What was it like playing under Calipari?
Oh man, Cal is I guess the fact that he has so many elite, talented guys that you expect them to go out there every day and perform. And for me, being a guy that, he didn't recruit me, I was kind of like a stepson leftover. And I'm just such a competitor, and he was bringing all these guys in that were, top in the country and Mr. Basketball, and I was kind of like a late bloomer, and I just okay. I was just one of those, late bloomer type of guys, and I didn't care about rankings, and like I really didn't play AU, so all that ranking stuff really didn't do anything to me. And I just battled every day in practice. Came early, stayed late, and eventually I beat all those guys out. And I still started a lot of games. Junior year, senior year. Uh, Progressively, our teams got better and better, and we got more and more talent and draft picks and all that good stuff. And it was a fun ride.
So I noticed it's obvious in your career, your work ethic to never give up, never stop,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
man. You can see it if you just go look up the history of your career, and
Yeah.
it's always all out.
Yeah, man, it's a lot of ups and downs. You mix in injuries with, you know, poor play or, end of season, just playing bad, mental focus. And a lot of times, if you're not in shape, you're trying to play yourself in shape. And that also takes away from, your performance. And I guess the older I got, the more I started taking care of my body and doing yoga and watching what I ate. And, I would do periods where I was like, all right, I'm gonna party up until this day, and then I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna cut down on my drinking, and do certain things. Like I know, beginning of October, I want to be in tip-top shape. So whatever happens, whoever calls, whatever training camp I have to go to, I won't have any excuses.
So what's your routine like on the off season? It's not the same during the
I
season,
mean, I
right?
still work out. I still work out. Try to work out 5 days a week. I know the little recent soldier elbow surgery that I had kind of kept me out of the gym because I couldn't get it wet. But I'm working out all my life. I love the gym. I love to run. I love to, haven't played it as much basketball, but I still like to get out there and, shoot, run up and down sometimes.
I want to bring up, and it's only because I'm a Sun Devil.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up your senior year, 2003. You guys played the Sun Devils
Yep.
in the tournament.
Yep.
Can you talk
First
about that
round.
game a little bit?
It was a fun, man. It's just that ride leading up to that game. Like I said, my freshman year, we were sub 500. Maybe I think we were like 13 and 15 or 13 and 16. My sophomore year, we were probably 16 and 15. We made it to the NIT. My junior year, we were 19 and 11 or whatever it may be, and we won the NIT. And then my senior year, I want to say we were ranked. We had DeJuan Wagner. We had a pretty good team. No, that was my junior year. We had DeJuan Wagner. But my senior year, we had a bunch of guys that had been together for a while and made it to the tournament. And unfortunately, we ran against a tough Arizona State team, and they had Ike Diago was their main player. And we had Chris Massey. They're probably similar sizes, 6'9", 260, and both of them could move. But I want to say Ike might have got a little bit better of the matchup between Chris Massey. I had to guard him, unfortunately, a few times, but they were real deep. They had a lot of shooters, some good point guards, but down low they had some size, 6'9", 6'11", 6'11", and I think they beat us probably close to 10 points. I think.
I don't personally remember the game. That was a long time ago. I don't know if I remember 5 years ago, but
Yeah.
All right. So undrafted out of college, how do you make your way to the NBA?
A lot of people didn't think. I guess my senior year didn't go as planned. I had a great sophomore year. People had all these expectations, and then, like I said, we got so much talent coming in. I kind of like, a couple of my teammates transferred. When Cal came in, they transferred, and I was like, I'd rather just stay here and ride it out. And yeah, it's gonna be some competition, but that's what I live for. And I forgot what I was saying. Next, go to Turkey. Never forget sitting at the airport, and I'm like, man, I'm about to go to a foreign country, be away from my family, my girlfriend at the time.
First time overseas.
First time leaving the country.
Yep.
And I'm leaving the country for up to 10 months. So, I guess when I got in there, I cried on the plane like, man, what am I doing? I'd rather stay. My goal was to make it to the NBA, and here I am going to Izmir, Turkey, and go to Turkey, have a pretty good year, end up getting injured, came back to the States, rehab, had an agent. He said, you want to go to the D-League? So I ended up driving to Huntsville, Alabama, 4-hour drive, get on the D-League team. And the coach at the time was Ralph Lewis, a former NBA player. He, just a good player, coach guy, and all the guys on the team. We had, Mateen Cleese. I don't know if you guys remember him.
Oh, yeah.
We had,
the Flintstones.
Yeah. We had,
the Flintstones.
we had Ken Johnson out of Ohio
What year
State.
was that? That 2000?
That was
2000?
2003, 2004.
Oh, really? Okay.
I graduated in 2003, so
Okay. Yeah.
we had a really good team, so I learned a lot from them guys. Came back the following year. Summer didn't do anything. I went to Orlando Magic training camp, went back to the D-League, had a really good year. I think I probably averaged 12-6 or something like that. Nothing crazy, but, I was pretty consistent. And I got invited to Summer League with the Heat. And at the time, Summer League was in Long Beach. So, they had like a little mini training camp, 3-4 days. And the first day, the starting center hyperextended his knee. So it's probably 3 guys I had to beat out. Plus Wayne Simeon they drafted, and they had Darrell Wright. So I'm like, if I can get a center spot, I probably can get some minutes, because you hear stories a lot about Summer League, and guys are so excited about Summer League, but they don't touch the court. So I'm just thankful to be here. But if I can get some minutes, cool. Probably on we were doing 2 a day, so another practice, another center forward, knee swelled up, he couldn't play. So it was like, all right, Earl, put me with the first unit, and we just clicked. And I was just absorbing all the information, the easiest way to score is when to set pick and rolls, learning all the X and O's about spacing. And I just started dominating in the first game, and I could shoot. So I'm rare that a big can shoot. So first game, I think we played Dallas maybe, and I was just hesitant, like catching the ball, hesitant. Probably had 10 points, 4 rebounds, and the coach came to me after the game, and Eric Spoelstra was our Summer League coach at the time.
Oh, wow.
So he came to me, and he was like, hey, stop hesitating. Just shoot. Play your game. Do what you do. I know you can do it. Go do it. And the next game we played, pick and pop. I guess people weren't used to it, and ducking in, like reacting. And I probably had 26 and 12. Like it was a real good game. And the next game, the same thing. Just not that I guess I was just listening and playing harder than a lot of guys. And, sometimes the hard work beats the talent. I don't know if you guys heard that before.
Yeah.
Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
So
I haven't figured out what I'm talented at yet. So
it'll come one day.
Hard work's all I know.
Hopefully sooner than later.
That's all I know is hard work.
Hopefully sooner than later. But long story short, man, I ended up making first team all summer league.
Nice.
And this is when Andrew Bynum was out there, so I had probably one of my best games was against the Lakers. And they had Ronnie Terry off, and I remember him from, I think it was Gonzaga. So they had a really good team. And, it was just, it happened so fast. And then after one of the games, one of the coaches or scouts, I don't know, whatever, came to me. He was like, hey, I think we're going to invite you to training camp. And so all the guys on the team was like, oh, man, you deserve, man. You're killing. I was like, yeah, I had some pretty good games. Trying to stay humble. And then, flew to Miami, and, all the guys they had from Summer League that they were thinking about signing, I just brought it every day, man. And they kind of looked up to the work ethic. And I'm like, hey, y'all have never heard of me. I've heard of all you guys, and I'm kind of starstruck with a lot of these, guys that were first team, Pac-12, Pac-10, SEC. And I'm like, these guys I've been following. And here I am, this kid out of Memphis that nobody expected to make it to the NBA. And I'm one step closer, and I end up, battling for a couple months, made it to training camp, and pretty much had a spot locked up.
So I'm always curious when you get to that level. I mean, any level really in competition is somebody doesn't know anything about it. It's like, how do you keep your composure and just and focus? Obviously focus is, you have to focus and not let the moment overtake you.
Yeah, like I said, it's something that I had dreamed of and wrote down in elementary school and junior high, and put in those little time capsules. And it's like, I want to make the NBA one day. I'm going to make the NBA one day. But it's like all the hard work I put in. And when I finally got there, I'll never forget when the first time Shaq walked in, probably a few weeks before training camp started, with his stuff on, and we were gonna play pickups. So it's like all the vets gonna start coming in. We're gonna start playing more pickups so guys can start getting in shape. And I never forget him walking in, and I was just like, instead of me being like, oh, that's Shaq, oh shit, like, I was just like, oh, there's my teammate. This is gonna be my future teammate. And we ended up sharing a locker. Nobody wanted to have a locker next to Shaq because he would, take off all his stuff. His tights and jersey and stuff would be all over your area. 23 shoes, lean up against your locker. And I'm like, dude, and I'm a neat freak. So I'm like, hey, I'm keeping my area clean. Can you keep your area clean? But I can't say that to him. So I ended up telling people, I was like, hey, man, I'll sit next to him. I don't mind. So I think one year I was sitting next to D Wade, and another year I was next to Shaq for 2 years. So it was cool, the camaraderie, learning from all those vets. But I looked at it like, hey, this is my job. I bust my ass to get here, and I really like it's. You look at them as coworkers, not like all stars or Hall of Famers, or especially when you're playing other teams.
At the end of the day, you got to compete.
Exactly,
you're a competitor. At the
you
end
got to
of the
compete. Yeah, so. It's crazy when you sit in the locker room and they're doing the scout report, and it's like, all right, this is Kobe's tendencies. If Kobe likes to do this, Kobe, I'm sitting there like, man, I got the best seat in the house. I said, even if I do get in the game tonight, I was like, shoot, you get a little nervous, and I don't care how many games you play, at what level, but there's always, a little bit of nerves, and especially when you're, getting into a game you're not expecting. It's like, all right, you got Powell, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, and this is when Powell was still Powell.
So what about your first time on the floor?
Probably just a preseason game. First time getting in. I think Miami, we played against the Hornets down in, might have been Biloxi. It was a preseason game. And I want to say I started one game. And I'll never forget, it was a tie game. And he ran a play for me for the game winner, basically. He said, we're going to run this for him. You're going to catch it. He said, you're going to be wide open at the free throw line. You shoot your shot, make it, we're going to win. I'm like, they're drawing up a play for me for a game winner. Miami Heat summer league. Preseason, and I airball.
Oh,
so I airball.
Wow.
We go into overtime. They run the exact same play for Gary Payton. They run the exact same play for Gary Payton, and he ends up making it. We end up winning the game. But I was just like, man, I just blew my opportunity to get that game winner and be a hero.
Yeah. Did you ever hear the Shaq tell the story about the Clippers and he wasn't going to go hard tonight, but the Clippers didn't give him the tickets he wanted?
Oh, that's typical with Shaq. That sounds something like something he would do.
So he lit him up and told him, don't ever do that to me in my build again.
Yeah, whenever we
they
played,
rented the Staples Center from the Lakers.
He would, man, he was just so dominant. Even then, he was so dominant, and he would just turn it on an extra notch, especially when we played like Orlando, when we played Dwight Howard, or we played Houston and Yao Ming when he was still there.
Mm-hmm.
It would just be a different Shaq, and he was just like, you know what, I'm the best center there is. I'm the most dominant player in the world. He said, Yao Ming. He was like, even though Yao Ming was really, really good at that time, and you would just see, he would go out and give you 28 and 17. The next night he'd give you 18 and 12. It's like, come on, Shaq, you just gave Yao 30 and 20, and now tonight we're playing, whoever, and you're, going through the motions.
What's the talent gap between high school to college and then college to the NBA? So what's the biggest, like you get there from high school to college and you're like, man, these guys are really good, and then college to the NBA?
I guess the skill set, the size, the speed, the strength, it just gets guys jump a little bit higher. Guys are a little bit faster. You look at, some of the NBA guys, and when there's a fast break, how fast they can like get out the block and run the lane, and it's like it's like night and day.
Bigger talent gap between high school and college, or bigger talent gap between college and the NBA, you think?
Definitely, I would say high school to college.
High school to college.
High school to college. But from college to NBA, it's just guys that can shoot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Guys that finish around the rim can finish around the rim. Like there's no big gaps. There's no, a lot of errors or missing layups or reverse layups or wide open corner threes. From the college to NBA, it's like, if you look at Steph, like making 100 and whatever it was that day, 105 corner threes in a row. And I tell guys, like, if you can shoot, you could shoot. Like I can make, I used to do drills where I had to make 10 in a row from 3 before I can move to another spot. People's like, man, that's impossible. I'm like, you look at Stojakovic's, they'll do 20 in a row from a spot, back in the day. Ray Allen, Reggie Miller's, like those guys are shooters. So when you say shooter, you're going 2 for 5, no defense on you in an empty gym. Like that's not shooting.
Right.
So that's what I would say probably the biggest gap.
I do want to back in when you talk about your time capsules and moving on. My little story is when I was 12 years old, my dad took me to Vegas for the first time. And when I got, back, how your teachers ask you what you want to do for a living. And I always said I wanted,
bets.
I wanted to be a pit boss in Vegas.
Oh my God.
My parents got a phone call when I said that. But you know what? The funny thing is it came true.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that's it. I'm done.
We got a lot in common.
That's it.
We got a lot in common. Dreams come true.
My story's a lot shorter.
Oh man.
But yeah, no, actually, I went to the racetrack for the first time I was 12. Went to Vegas for the first time I was 12, and I just kind of knew, like, always just waiting till I was old enough to do it. And it's funny. That's it. That's all I got. I'm out. All right, hey, we got a couple questions for you from some guests, and I want to the difference of travel between either the NCAA and the NBA, or the difference to team when it came to how they travel as pro athletes. He says, is it close, or is it based on the team?
Not even close. College, you do traveling, but you have a lot of home games. You have a lot of space in between games. Charter flights, go to the airport, go to the hotel, play the game the next day. You're not staying, lengthy times because you have school and people have homework and study hall and all that kind of stuff. But the NBA is just like you might have 3 road games in a matter of 2 weeks. 3-4 games. When you talk about those stretches of West Coast swings and East Coast swings where you're playing 7 games in 2 weeks, 7 games in a 16, 17, 18 days, back-to-backs. I don't know if you remember the one year where there was like a short season or something happened. I can't remember what happened, but some teams had to play 3 games in a row. Like every team had to play 3 games in a row. And, you're playing the game, getting on the plane, flying back, long flight, especially if you're going from, LA back to Miami, and you get to Miami late, practice the next day, super light, boom, game the next day, get on the plane, fly to Orlando or, Charlotte, whatever it may be. Day before, play the game, maybe spend the night, just depends on it. But it's just a lot of, you get used to the plane. If you don't like to fly, then being a professional athlete is not something you want to do. And I've seen guys that don't like to fly. I'm like,
Really?
dude, you're in the wrong business. But, they give people pills, say go to sleep, give something to relax. But
yeah, every time I fly, I have to take something. I don't care for it
after you've traveled as much as me, I think my longest flight was to the Philippines. It was either Philippines or China. And I was like 19 hours on the plane, like however long it was. I was like, man, when you get there, it's like a whole day difference, as opposed to 3 hours Central Time. It's like, nah, this is a whole different ball game. But all that traveling I did, man, I was on planes flying over all kind of water and seas, and
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have a lot more traveling in NBA. I mean, you have what, 15? You have 32, 33, 34 games in college for a regular season, right?
Yeah.
And then you split it up, probably 15, 16 home games or something. So.
But in college, you take in the fact that it's like the Maui Invitational or the Puerto Rican Shootout or something.
Right. So you're going to have
you might
3
fly
games
there
in the same destination. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What do you got?
Other questions?
Yeah.
Oh, we got lots more. I'm looking.
Go ahead, knock them out. Come on. Rapid fire.
All right, rapid fire. Okay. How'd you end up in St. Louis?
My wife she's from here. I played for the Suns at one point, and I met her here, and she ended up moving to Phoenix because her mom was, I think she was working for State Farm at the time. They have a big, facility or building out there. And
State Farm Marina.
Yeah. So we start dating and stayed in Arizona for a few years, and she said she wanted to be closer to home. I'm kind of closer to home now, and I've seen my family and friends more in the past year than I have in the past 5 years because I can just get in the car and drive 4 hours if I want to go to Memphis, 5 hours if I want to go to Clarksdale. Yeah. So, it's cool, man. It's been an adjustment, but,
How long you been here?
About a year, a little over a year. Okay. So,
cool.
It's just like I tell people, I was like, man, I've gone to Lebanon. I was in Lebanon for, I think, 2 or 3 weeks. And it's just like, man, you adjust. Like, you don't know anybody. You don't know where to go to eat. You don't know what kind of food to order. You don't know the language. And I said, you figure it out. You meet some people, meet some friends, find you a poker room.
Yeah. we're in about 5 minutes. We're gonna take a break. When we come back, we're definitely gonna talk some poker and how you got into that.
Yeah, for sure.
You got any college stuff you want to go over?
Well, one thing I wanted to, one thing that's changed big time is with these college athletes is NIL. You knew where I was going with that one. You knew where I was going, man. It's I guess it formulated from what I've heard, Ed O'Bannon, that lawsuit, he seen like some retro UCLA team on a video game, didn't he?
Yep.
And he's like, hey, that's me.
Yep. And I actually remember the actual game. And I ended up going back to Memphis, and I was like playing with the Tigers. Like, let me see if I can see number 30 out there. And I was like, because I'm gonna jump into this lawsuit too. But there wasn't a number 30, and I was like, they don't know me yet. They don't know me yet. But yeah, man, it's crazy seeing those kids. They're making millions. I was talking to one of my old teammates the other day, and I was like, man, I said we used to get excited about our little $350 stipend each month, and our Pell grants in the summer. Like, oh man, I'm gonna buy me a pair of shoes and 3 T-shirts to save the rest of my money. Some people go out and buy 5 pair of Jordans, wouldn't have a penny, and I'm like, So to this day, they still call me cheap. They're like, you still got your meal money from your freshman year. I was like, nah, not quite.
How about a video game?
Right now, I just downloaded 2K23, but I was hooked on this game called The Division for a while. The original Division was a 4-player game, and actually one of my old teammates in the D-League introduced me to it. And I hadn't played video games in forever. And some kind of way I was on, and he was like, hey, man, you should go buy this game, da-da-da-da-da. And I get it, and I was instantly like, what did I just do? And I'm talking all day. My wife would go crazy. But it was a 4-player game, and you go in, everybody had different abilities. You have a support guy. You have a guy that can make you bleed if you shoot a person a certain amount of times. You can have a sniper that can stand at the end of the block who people wouldn't even know that you're there or on a part of the team, and then all of a sudden one shot you drop somebody, but it makes your whole team go rogue. So that basically says, hey, they're with somebody in this zone is with the shit. Like they're causing some problems, and it alerts the whole map. So people are trying to come, and sometimes you could just wreak havoc. And if you're in the right server, you could just destroy everybody and piss everybody off. You kill everybody, and then you have to. There's a timer that you have to run the timer off, and it's a manhunt. So if you kill the guys that are manhunt, you're usually pretty good. You get a whole lot of points, a lot of XP. You can take their gear and make your man stronger. And the guys that I used to run with was probably like 6 of us, and we would just be waiting in line. If I got on late, like on a Saturday at noon, I knew I couldn't get a spot. So I was like, man, I got to get in there because we might play from noon to 5 and just wreak havoc in the server. But it was once I got on that game, my wife was like, I bought you a PlayStation. I was like, it was your fault. I was doing just fine without a PS5 or PS4 at the time, but you bought it, so you make your bed, you lay in it.
Yeah, she opened this box of worms.
She did. She definitely did.
We got a question from somebody watching. Your top 3 NBA players of all time.
I gotta say, favorite teammate of all time has to go into that category is Udonis Haslem. He's an underdog. He's if you know his story, you appreciate him that much. But playing in the NBA 20 years, he's a guy that I saw work ethic, brought it every day, win or lose, great attitude, great teammate, professional. Just a dog, somebody that you want to be in the trenches with. So I would say Udonis Haslem,
former Florida Gator, I believe.
Florida Gator. I guess of course Shaq. Just how dominant he was, to see what he could do. See his stories. Watching him play as a kid, and then like I said, sharing a locker room, sitting right next to him, cracking jokes every day, and probably they said favorite of all time, right? KG.
KG.
Probably KG.
Yeah.
And I got a chance to play against KG.
He was from my hometown, or close to it, Malden, South Carolina.
Okay.
Back near Clemson. So.
Was it Farragut?
He went to Chicago.
Yeah.
And went to Farragut, but he's from
KG. So
all roads on this show lead to Clemson.
They eventually lead back to Clemson in the Palm. They eventually lead back there.
Somehow your story will lead back.
Yeah. How did you get to Clemson? Like,
I'm born and raised there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry
you
to
have
hear,
to be.
Sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that.
You know.
Sorry to hear that.
You ever been to Clemson?
No, I've been to Auburn before, though.
Clemson is Auburn with a lake. Yeah, Clemson is Auburn with a lake.
I see the orange and I just get confused. I just see the orange. I'm like, they suck. They suck. I was like, oh, that's Tennessee. My bad. Like, oh, that's Clemson. Oh,
that's funny.
Yeah, we had a run. We had a basketball run from like 05 to 10.
Yeah.
But then our coach went to DePaul for some reason, and that messed everything up.
I think college basketball is like the NBA. Teams make their rotations. Like, Golden State was trash for a long time. The Bulls were trash. The Heat was trash. Teams make their cycles where they practice, they gel, and the next thing you know, they're at the top. So look at Tennessee. Tennessee's been talked about in the state of Tennessee for a long time, and now they beat Alabama. Who would ever thought Tennessee would beat Alabama? How you would say that.
All right. On that note, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little poker with Earl Barron. We'll be right back.
Domination. I've got a golden ticket.
That's a winner!
All right, good morning. We are live here at DraftKings at Casino Queen. I am joined by Clemson John and Earl Barron. Earl, we're having a blast, but I want to get into a little poker. I know you like to play. How did you get involved, and how did you learn how to play?
Man, in Miami. Which I never learned. No, but in Miami at the time, 2006 when I was in Miami, they did not have cash games. So it wasn't. They didn't even have table games. So they just had slots, and I remember maybe blackjack at the time, but they didn't have cash games. So what people play were sit-and goes. So you would have a really nice poker room, a lot of tables, and they would have sit-and goes. And if you don't know what a sit-and go is, you pay a set price, 10 single table sit-and goes, and they would have side bets. So you pay $150 and then pay $50 for last longer. and you end up winning one of those. I'm like, hey, I just turned 100 into 1,200 or 13, 1,500, whatever it may be, in an hour and a half. I was like, I like this. And then I started playing, 250s, 500s, and if you really think you're good, you play $1,000 sit and go, and then you do $100 last longer. Now you've got, if you win, you're talking about 11,000 off
Yeah.
of $1,000, and I got hooked, and I would say probably the next year they passed a law where they had cash games. So the cash game started out crazy because it was $100 max buy-in.
$100 max buy-in.
buy-in. So that would basically be 10 gamblers sitting at the table, and we're speaking. All right, y'all ready? I'm all in.
Right.
It would be all in, all in, all in, all in, all in. So basically, guys would go all in until they built up a stack, and so it's like $100 buy-in. So you could sit there and get lucky 3 straight hands, and you're sitting on 3 stacks. And now you can pick and choose if you want to play or not, and pick off those little hundreds, and and then they passed a law that no limit, and then poker just blew up in Florida. But ever since then, man, the sit and goes kind of got me into that tournament vibe, and then start playing, multi-table tournaments and guarantees and all that, and I just fell in love with the game.
So, do you prefer cash or tournaments?
I prefer tournaments.
Yeah.
I prefer tournaments.
Why?
Just because it's just a challenge. It's the mental aspect of it. Your emotions, your ego. Sometimes you just got to put all that aside. You can play great for a day and a half and just do some dumb shit
Yeah, the
at
mental
the end of
lapse.
the day, and you're like, you sit in the car, you sit in the parking lot, like, fuck, I was playing so good, and I just
So
that
much
guy-
to try not
I
to cuss
I
aspect.
was like, that guy just he can't have it every time. I was like, there's no way he's got it right here. I'm gonna pull off one this time. I'm gonna pull off a nice bluff. Like Snap calls me. I'm like, damn, like, come on, man. But yeah, man, and then once you win one, like I played one when I was still playing with the Heat, and it was a main event in Gold Strike, and we ended up chopping it 4 ways, and
How many people were in that tournament?
probably like 200 and something.
200,
It wasn't a big, it wasn't a
It's a
huge
decent
field because it was a big buy-in. I can't remember. It might not even been that much, but first was 1 something. Second and third got 77, and then third got like 36,000. So it was a good payout.
Yeah,
But
that's great.
Florida at that time, when I told you the sitting goes, they would have they call it the Big Slick. So every Saturday, the last Saturday of the month, they would have $1,000 buy-in, and it would get a huge turnout. And I ended up chopping one of those one week. I think it was Memorial Weekend, and that's how crazy I love poker. My buddy was in town. And, we had went out Friday night. Saturday morning, I was like, man, I'm going to play poker. He's like, man, I said, man, I'm going to play poker. I said, you can rest. I can send you a text message, and you can go somewhere and have brunch and hang out, whatever. But Big Slick, and I ended up going that day. Never forget. And I won some pots early. He was like, man, what time you gonna be back? He was at the condo, and I was like, man, I'll keep you posted. I said, I got a few chips. I said, let's shoot for 1 o'clock to go out. We can go to South Beach. 10 o'clock comes. It's probably 50 people left. Midnight gets close. It's about 20 people, and I text him. I'm like, hey, man, I think I'm gonna be here for the long haul. And we end up chopping that one. And I came home. I came home with the 30. 30,000 was probably one of my biggest scores. And then I showed it to him, and he was like, man, I need to learn how to play poker. But
that's how it is, though, when you're going to play. It's like, I'm going to be at this seat at this table. I don't know where you're going to be, but this will be where I am if you want to go.
So I sacrificed my Saturday night in Miami with one of my good teammates and friends to play a tournament that I finished at about 2-something in the morning, but it
was worth it.
It was definitely worth it.
Absolutely.
So my whole entire adult life has been gaming. I've been around poker, it's 16-year-old playing games in, my buddy's house, and, I put me through college, and here I am 33 years later. This is what I've lived is the poker life, and from a player and from a casino employee also. And I've really never missed a summer of the World Series up to this last year.
Yeah.
And it's been, I love tournaments. I love cash. But the thing I love about tournaments is, man, you sit down, and if you play good, run good, for a week, it can be life-changing.
Yes.
And to know that you're using your own abilities like you have,
Mhm.
right, in your career, you can change your life and your family's life forever.
Yep.
And so in 2014, I had an opportunity to play the main event for the first time, and here I am. I'm shaking. It's the first time, and I've been around poker, my whole life, so
Yeah.
I shouldn't be nervous. But to think that somebody put up $10,000 for me to play, that was going through my mind. But once I won my very first pot, I flopped quads, and
Yeah.
I doubled up, and it was like I'm winning this thing, right? I mean, there are 7 more days to go, and
Yeah.
it didn't work out. Obviously, I'm not, didn't win it, but just the feeling, man, is nothing
Yeah.
like feeling like you have an opportunity to win that kind of money. And
It's a different feel.
yeah, so your first time was 2015. If you guys want to check it out on YouTube, there's an interview with Earl and his first experience playing the main event. Let's talk about your first main event, man. This is your feelings and how'd you play?
Tight. Played super tight. Did a lot of folding. But it was fun, man. You got a bunch of different egos and different personalities at the table. Sometimes you can be at a fun table, a fun action, not necessarily action table, but a fun table with guys that know how to play, that are sociable. You can conversate with, have fun, joke. And then one year I played and nobody said anything for the entire day. I busted like the last level, and I was just like, this is terrible. Like, joking, no smiling. Most of the people didn't speak English. Um, and it was just that so serious feel, which I understand, but even the dealers sometimes are just like, this table is too serious, but you can understand. But like you said, the main event, man, it's just a different vibe. You can turn
Yeah.
around and be bumping chairs with Daniel Negreanu, and I played a tournament one time with Phil Ivey, who busted me. I had jacks, I jammed.
He's supposed to bust you, just
No,
like you know.
no, I was supposed to bust him. I was supposed to flop quads against him. That's what was supposed to happen. But he had just sat down and he just put his chips out the rack. And he looked. He's like, "How much is that?" And I was like, "Ah, shoot, here's Phil." And he jammed. I was like, "He can't have anything right here. Just kings. That's all. Just kings."
Yes.
But I
And
played
what'd
it.
you
I
have?
played it 3 times. Jacks.
Jacks.
And,
Yeah, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, I was I think I had 20 bigs, 15 bigs. I was like, let's get it in.
Yeah,
But
well, you have to step out, and I don't consider that stepping out.
yeah,
But
you got to get lucky.
Yeah.
You got to play good. You got to run good. You got to get lucky sometimes. You know what I mean? And
and
you
limit
win
your
the
bad
flips.
decisions, right?
You win the flips. I played a tournament in Florida. Was visiting for my wife's birthday, and I was like, she was like, "You ain't gonna?" I said, "I'm going to play poker. I don't want to go to no club." I said, they got the poker open going, whatever the heart, the
They had a big
lucky
tournament
hearts.
series.
I was like, I'm gonna go play this 250. I said, they're giving away a main event seat. I said, whatever. So I ended up going, and I think I fired maybe 3 bullets, and one of them was I think a 1 or 2 out on the river. So I was like, you know what, that one don't really count. I'm gonna go buy it again. So the third bullet, I was in a spot where I had ace king, and it was a raise and a jam, and I looked down at ace king, like the small blind. I was like, I said, something's telling me just go ahead and fold, because I don't feel like I'm gonna win this flip. I said, just fold it, Earl. Just fold it. You can do it. You can fold it. And I was like back and forth, like, put them chips in there, Earl. It's ace king. Come on, man. And then I ended up folding, and the other guy had like ace jack, and the guy had pocket sixes, and he ended up winning. And I told the dealer, I said, man, I'm gonna win this tournament. I said, watch. And I ended up
Sixes ended up winning.
pocket sixes ended up winning. I would have lost. Either I think it would have crippled me or basically busted me. And I ended up making the final table, and I was this close to chopping and winning this seat, but I think I ended up finishing third. Took that money, bought into the main the next day, got 8 away from the money, and picked up. The cool thing about the main event in Hard Rock is they give you those time chips. And they're like time bank,
Yeah.
but they're weird feeling. I'm just like, I feel like I'm in a hot roller right now. Like, I have to change the way I sit. So I told one of them, I said, man, if I get aces, I'm gonna use all my time banks. And literally the same orbit, I said that, I get aces on the button and the cheerleader raises, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I said, man, I'm not gonna use these time banks. I said, I'm just gonna, tank for a little bit and just put it in. And jam aces on the button, and a small blind snap jams, like snap all ins. And I'm like, cool. Like, what could you have right here? And he has 9s, chip leader folds, and he ends up flopping this. I think it was like the worst flop ever, 8, 9 jack or something. I was like, oh, good game. So
I don't understand this question. The worst tables are 9 people in hoodies and headphones.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I guess I get it. Okay.
Yeah. Now,
I should know what that means.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Sometimes, I mean, I always have my earbuds on standby because there's always that one guy that just super annoying or drunk that won't shut up and just ask you stupid questions, and you're like, dude, leave me alone. You know what? Don't worry about it. Put them earbuds in. Sometimes I don't even be listening to nothing. I just have them in. It's like, I can't hear you, but I really can hear you, but I don't want to hear you.
So one of the questions I have, like you talk about learning from your coaches and working hard in basketball. And what's your approach to poker, and how do you get better at poker?
I mean, I watched a lot of videos. I think one year I was in. I just like telling stories of my past, but I was in Borgata. I was in DC, and I was like, man, they got this poker tournament in Borgata. I think it was a $1 million guarantee main event. I can't remember, $500,000 guarantee. Maybe it was $500 or $600, whatever. I said, I gotta go play that. Drove there, and I ended up sitting next to Paul Volpe. So Paul Volpe's, ran deep in a couple tournaments, and he had a lot of chips, and I had a decent stack at the time. And we small talk, we get to talk, and he's like, "You playing the NBA?" Blah blah blah. And I started asking him poker questions, and he started telling me, he's like, "Man, I started watching high rollers. I started watching the high stake cash games. I started, replaying hands and watching hands, and what would I have done in this position?" And that's what I started doing. I started watching high rollers, and of course, Garrett, and I watched a lot of Phil Ivey hands, but reading books. Daniel Little has a lot. David um, has a lot of those. Informative, what do you do in these spots, and all that GTO stuff that some people have memorized, which is crazy to me.
Right.
But you got to know all these different spots, and coordinated boards, and how much to bet, and I just love it. I don't like making mistakes that simple mistakes where it's a easy bet when I don't bet and I check, or spots when I'm clearly supposed to check and I bet and I get raised, and I'm like, that was dumb. Like, why did you bet right there? You're supposed to check that back. And so you start learning, and when you start winning those hands where you make the right play and you check when you're supposed to check, and you pot control. I started learning about pot control. A lot of times I'm like, man, I'm just trying to get all my money in there. Forget that. And then I start, changing on my game, and it's been working. You're gonna get your coolers, you're gonna get your, kings, you're gonna run into aces sometimes, but at the end of the day, if you play good poker and the spots you're supposed to do what you're supposed to do, you do it, and a lot of times, 9 out of 10 is gonna work out.
So is this turning into a second career for you?
My wife's not having that. It's too much travel. I got a lot of friends that travel circuits and play a lot of poker, make a lot of money, but it's a hectic schedule. Bound hotel rooms and rental cars and driving a Cherokee. Hour and a half drives and all those guys. But like you said, it's rewarding. It's life changing. You can go. And I think for Paul Volpe's case, he won back-to-back weekends. He won a tournament, went to a wedding in like San Jose or something, and the 101 was having a tournament. And he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go jump in this." And so something happened with rehearsal. I can't remember how the story goes, but he ended up finishing like second or winning. I can't remember. And this was back-to-back weekends where he won almost 700,000 in a matter of a month. So, it's studying just like any other thing. You study and you read books. Watch videos, and you just watch hands in different spots. And I'll watch a hand over and be doing something and get distracted and see what happened on the river, and then I'll rewind it and go back to what happened pre-flop. It's like, oh, did he 3-bet? How much did he 3-bet? And start learning sizings and try to pick up tails and all this other kind of stuff. It's like I never thought about some of the things, how advanced these guys think right now, but it's just such a mind game that
for sure.
It's I love it, man.
Yeah,
no,
it's definitely challenging and keeps you thinking. I'll give you, for instance, the changeover I started, everything was limit. A lot of stud. Hold'em was kind of new in the early 90s. If you were going to play Hold'em, usually it was, the higher limit players. They were getting into that, all different kinds of the new games. But when I started, it was limit, and I've won more than a few tournaments between 30 and 50,000 in limit. Right. So when anything changed over in the early 2000s with the big boom to no limit, and no limits, been around in the World Series of Poker and tournament wise. No limit's been around for a long time, but adjusting to cash is I've still had trouble many years later. Here we are, almost 20 years later, adjusting my brain to the no limit game.
Yeah.
And it's work, right?
Yeah.
It's like I had to start over, and I feel I'm not at the point where I was as a limit player, because I was a very successful limit player. I was playing when I lived in Las Vegas. I was playing 20, 40, 40, 80 every day, and those are big games, and I did very well. I did very well at them, and I came to no limit in the early 2000s because everything's now you can still play 40, 80.
When did Moneymaker win? What year was that when Moneymaker won? 03.
Yeah, 03.
So it really took off after that.
02 or 03. I'm pretty sure. I'm second
That,
guessing myself.
the TV broadcasts and the online and the internet poker.
It exploded, right? So everything changed, and believe it or not, the soft money was in the no limit, right? I mean, you're playing against really good players playing high limit games, and there's a learning curve to everything, and I felt like I was just starting over, and I have been unsuccessful in my time playing cash no limit. I've won a few no limit tournaments. Like I said, it's a different game, right? So I use my knowledge from early on tournament. I think I had a head start over a lot of people, but people have, with all the information out there now, videos, books.
There's no excuse not to be good in poker right now.
Well, if you want to put the work in, right? And that's what it comes down to. So part of that's myself not spending the time to do what you're doing, right? And chosen not to go that route. But I mean, I noticed my game and my profits dwindling as the game changed. Yeah. And I don't know if you're familiar with limit, but
I played limit. I played it maybe twice.
Yeah, it's different, right?
Yeah, it's
completely different
because you got guys are just raising. I'm like, I got aces. What are you raising with? And then somebody else re-raises. I'm like, okay, you know what I mean? It's kind of hard to control. So you don't really know what flops are good, what flops are bad. Like if it goes bet, raise, and you got aces on a 10 high flop, like, in no limit, you're probably jamming. But, in limit, it's like, there's probably no way I'm good right here.
Yeah.
I don't know. Say the object, like I've heard the object of limit is to save as many bets as you can.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely
bets.
true.
Okay.
So are you good enough to save a $40 or an $80 bet on the end when there's 400 in the pot?
Yeah.
And you're always getting 10 to 1 on every street almost.
Yeah.
But can you look back and say I've saved 7 bets in the last hour? Saving bets is
that's a big difference in winning and losing, or looking at
sure.
your profit for the month and be like, man.
Also, the blind structure, it's huge, right? You're playing 20-40, it's $30 in blinds around, so you have to get out there. Yeah, you can't just sit and wait.
No limit, you can fold for an hour straight.
It's just hard to do.
Yeah, very hard, especially for people that try to play the best. And I'm sitting here trying to play my best. I'm like, you know what? I'm tired of sitting here and folding. I'll take 8 right now. Let me try to do something stupid.
No, I don't think that's stupid. I think it's total position approach, right? Yeah. I mean, it's so different than how I grew up in poker, and it's hard. You have to face yourself, right? You got to take the ego out and actually be self-aware that I know I'm not a winning player in no limit, and that's tough to. As I was a winning player for so many years, it's tough to look at yourself and say, now you got to start all over. So I'm always curious how people not only get into poker, what's their approach and how serious do they take it. And, I hear all the time, pot odds and many things that we hear at a poker table. And you just wonder, do they really understand what they're saying?
Over betting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I talk to guys. So, I like to talk about poker. A lot of guys are happy to. Most people, they're like, I don't want to talk about poker. But they're happy to talk to me about hands and positions and over betting and value and then thin value bets and professionals that have been doing it for a long time are excited to talk about it. And I'm just like absorbing all of this stuff. And I'll never forget one tournament. I was actually in Florida and we were on break and the guy was telling me, he's like, I was in a hand with Matt Berkey and I think he had King Jack and it was a Jack high board and the board paired on the bottom paired on the turn and the river came a brick. And he said he bet out like 2x pot. I was like, that. And I said, he called you? He's like, yeah, he called me. And I said, I was like, when you break it down, it was like, whatever, 50,000 in the pot, and he bet like 140, and he got called, and I'm like, I would have never bet that much, but in certain spots, like that's how you get chips in tournament. Like you're trying to maximize, make the best decision possible, and sometimes it might be a weird play. I'll never forget. I had aces, and it wasn't a main event, but I was in Vegas playing a big tournament. And I had aces, and I think I 3-bet pre, and it came 7 high, and I was first at, and we were pretty deep, and I just jammed. Like the player, the way he was playing. I was like, if he has nines, tens, jacks, I was like, he's probably gonna call me because he think I'm full of it, and it was a way over bet. And he sat back in his seat. And and a lot of times in poker, when you got somebody. And I immediately knew. I was like, I got him. I was like, he didn't snap fold. I said, he think I'm full of shit. I got him. He sat there. He was like, how much is it? They do the how much is it? I was like, oh, I definitely got him now. So he sat there and he started counting his chips out. I was like, don't put it in there. I'm saying to myself, just put it in there, put it in there, put it in there. He's like, you know what? I'll call. Turn over aces. He turned over pocket tens. And I was like,
pocket tens? Wow.
So I ended up winning a big pot, and it's just a matter of how you play, and switch it up sometimes, and sometimes you do weird stuff. Guy might snap fold. You're like, that was dumb. I should have just bet small, and
or let him take the lead.
Yeah, let him take the lead. But pros do stuff sometimes. You be like, that was dumb. You know what I mean? That was dumb. But they can do the same thing in another session, and it worked. You be like, man, he's a genius.
Yeah.
Man, David is man. I love watching David play.
Nobody's ever said that to me.
No. Maybe in another sport. I don't know. Flipping nickels or something.
I told you about my short basketball career.
Yeah.
43 seconds, 3 years of hard work. I took 2 shots and made them both, and they benched me.
Oh, okay.
Well, you got the best shooting percentage. Hey, you up there with one of the GOATs.
Yeah.
Now, you can't really say too many people. My shooting percentage, man, I probably shot close to 40% my career, so you beat me. You beat me.
Let's not get carried away.
All right. My bad.
All right, hey, I want to get into a little fantasy football, and let's see. We got a question from our man Pete Sipple, who is our resident fantasy football expert. Are you in a fantasy league with any other NBA players?
No, I'm in a fantasy league with a couple guys that played in the NFL. Well, one of them played in the NFL, but I think it's 11 people. 5 of them played football. One of them played in the NFL. One of them is his dad. But I got destroyed last year. This year, 2-4. So I've won two of my last 3. So I'm kind of getting back in there. Made a trade yesterday. I had magically got Russell Wilson. I got lucky got Russell Wilson as my quarterback. So
nice.
That's paying off for me. Off for me big time because I'm getting smacked. Yeah, I'm being sarcastic.
I was going to say. What did I miss?
And guess who else I got on my team? Old Melvin Gordon. So
God.
I know. So I'm next year. I'm just gonna let my I told my buddy, I said when I do the draft, I'm just gonna do an auto pick. I'm just do auto pick because I'm not finna sit in here and end up in the same boat I'm in now. But it's fun, man. I just like it makes me want to watch the games more.
Yeah, for sure.
It makes me more excited. Now, definitely gonna watch more now that I placed the parlay. So
see, I love it. Bring them down to DraftKings at Casino Queen.
Oh man,
and I said,
"This your first time here, or?"
This is my first time.
Yeah. They got a ton of options.
Won't be my last, especially if I win. I gotta go turn that ticket in.
I said, hey Earl, I'm here every Saturday. I'm more than happy to cash for you. He said, nah, I'll be back.
I'll be back.
I've been here when they've shut the lights off at 11 p.m.
Yeah. They had to kick them out.
Bam! It's like third quarter of the UCLA Washington game,
Yeah.
and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna hit this over. I'm gonna get it, and then whoop, lights go on. I'm like, wow, I've been here all day.
That's funny.
We got a big fight coming up. Actually, more than one. We got a big fight card from Abu Dhabi coming up at 1 o'clock Central Time. The prelims should be already on their way. If not, they're going to get started shortly. Prodigy MMA, who came on last week and went 7-0. I had an interview with him Thursday night. It is taped. We're going to play that here in about 10 minutes.
He went 7-0 last week?
He went 7-0 last week.
Wow.
On his picks. So
I should have been here last week.
Yeah, he's absolutely fantastic. Can't wait for you guys to see. It's about a 20-minute interview coming up here in about 10 minutes. And yeah, man, I just got into the fight when we had Micah Mills a couple weeks ago. I mean, I've always been watching it, but are you an MMA fan?
I mean, I keep up with it. I've been watching. I don't know all the new names, but I actually started watching UFC back when Horace Gracie.
Yeah.
So I used to love Horace Gracie.
Yeah, of course.
Of course, boxing, Mike Tyson, and then Floyd started coming into the picture. But UFC, I've been watching it for a while. The MMA, I've been to a few small live matches, but all the main stuff I've been to is just big boxing. I've been to boxing.
So speaking of boxing, I've always loved boxing, and it was hard for me to make the transition to MMA, but I'm liking it more and more, especially now there's a card every weekend. And for me as a gambler, I just like the action, and now I'm liking the actual fighting also. But speaking of boxing, when I was a teenager, I was picked as the group. We had when the pay-per-view just started, Mike Tyson. So I was picked to go get the pizza, right? We didn't have it delivered. I went and picked it up. And by the time I got back, the fight was over. It was like 31 seconds into the fight. I'm like, and they're like, hey, where's your share of the... I said, are you kidding me?
I'm sure everybody has a story. It's like, I'm going to go run to the bathroom and pee real quick. I'll be right back. And then you come back.
Over.
Like,
but it's more than one time,
ding, ding,
right?
ding.
Yeah. I mean, he was
knocking people out.
Have you seen his comedy?
Yeah, it's hilarious.
He's funny.
It's hilarious. I wasn't expecting it to be that funny.
But he's funny.
But when it came out, was it last year or?
It's last year, the year before.
Yeah, that one. It was hilarious.
He is funny.
It's funny.
Yeah, the whole thing.
I was a Mike Tyson story. I was in Vegas one year with a bunch of guys that play ball, and one of them's friend was in the Army. This is a chick that was in the Army, and we were all out. And I think we had went to lunch or something, so we ended up planning to go to the club. So we were at the club, and we're drinking and stuff. And I had quite a few in me that night, and I left to go to the bathroom, and I ended up leaving and going out somehow, and I saw the sun. I was like, this is the wrong place. I had to go back. Security's like, no, you left. I was like, man, I went out the wrong door. Please let me back in. So we ended up going back in, and the girl runs up to me. She's like, Earl, can you just stand by me and put your arm around me? I was like, for what? I was like, I said, you're all right? She was like, I just bumped into Mike Tyson, and he won't leave me alone. I said, that's your problem. I said, that's your problem. I said, I don't want no parts of that. I said, you leave me alone. I'm staying out of that.
Ding, ding, ding.
I was walking in the XS one night, and I see Chuck Liddell kind of swerving towards and I'm coming in, and he's trying to come out. And I said, yeah, I don't want them problems either. I couldn't let Mr. Liddell, you come on through.
Yeah, Mr. Liddell.
I don't want you to try me right here, but I know a few moves. I've been watching enough UFC. Put him in a little arm bar. He won't expect it.
I don't want to be in an arm bar. I watch it and gamble on it. And that's what we're going to do today.
Micah gave me his picks.
Yes, so speaking of, we have Micah Mills, who was on a 590 The Fan last night. He gave out his picks last night. And I think you'll find out that a lot of their picks are close, and the way they break down the games are pretty similar. It's amazing the knowledge these guys and the time they spend. Like you spend in your sport, and we all spend in poker. It's just amazing the work and the knowledge that these guys have. So I'm looking forward to everybody seeing this interview and listening to Prodigy break these matches down. But Abu Dhabi, man, have you ever been over there?
No. Farthest I've been was Lebanon. I went to Lebanon for a couple weeks, and it's pretty. Going to these certain countries, you get culture shock from whatever it may be, whether it's the food, the cars, the toilets, Middle East and a lot of places the toilets on the ground. So that's some people.
Really?
It's like, yeah, there's no regular toilet. Like it's just basically a hole in the ground. So your quads and your knees aren't strong, you're gonna struggle. You know what I mean?
Well, they say it's a better way to go.
Yeah.
So it's a healthier way.
Yeah. Well, you do that on another show. Yeah. You do that one on another show. Not today. I agree, but I don't want to go But you know,
Uh,
things like that. And then Lebanon was cool, was crazy because they had barricades. Soon as we left the airport, you had barricades where you basically had to, you know, go through to get on the highway. And I was just like, man, this is kind of serious. You know, armed guards, you know, army people outside, and I'm just like, wow, this is, you know, there was a tank literally at the apartment they had me staying in. There was a tank down the street, but it was right across the street from this little store. But it was probably a half a mile walk. And I'll never forget walking there one day, and I came out, and the guy was like, "Hey, come here." And I was like, "Nah, I don't know you. You don't know me." I said, "I'm trying to." And he was like, "Hey, come here." And I ended up walking over to the guy, and I said, "What's up, man? Can I help you?" And he was like, What are you doing? Where are you from?" And I was like, "Oh Lord," you know, he's sitting there standing next to a tank, armed. And then I remember the name of my team. I was like, Mutahid, and that was the name of the team I was on. I said, "I'm here from Mutahid." He's like, "Oh, okay." He said, "Okay, you have a nice day," and let me go. And I was like, I'm not coming back out my apartment anymore." I was like, this is crazy. But yeah, man, being overseas, man, have so many stories and, you know, taxes. Because I get out and I explore, man. I was like, I'm being in the city. I'm gonna go, you know, have fun, see some sights, you know, enjoy it, man.
What's your favorite place you've been to?
Philippines was fun. The weather was so nice. You know, cost of living's not too bad. My teammates were, you know, they just hardworking, fun group of guys. Taiwan probably was the same way, where, you know, it was just fun. And then when you're winning on top of that, it just makes it that much better. Um, Japan, I don't eat seafood everywhere we go. They were getting sushi and stuff, and I was like, man, that looks so good, but I do not eat.
Really?
I'm not a sushi
Love it.
seafood guy.
Yeah.
And you know, that was the only thing about Japan. And then the weather is just, you know, monsoons and a lot of rain. Was in Puerto Rico for a couple weeks. That was fun. Turkey was cool. I was young. I wish I could go back, but I didn't travel and explore Turkey as much as I should, because it's a beautiful country. A lot of stuff to do, a lot of stuff to see. Um, but you know, it's fun. I did get to go to the Great Wall my sophomore year in college. I got selected for this USA traveling team.
Yeah, I was
and I
going to
got to
ask
go
you
to
about that.
see the Great Wall. Went to Beijing, played against Yao and Wang Zhezhi.
Nice.
So that was
Against
an
Gal
extra.
on that.
Yes, we
Wow.
played them in. I want to say they won gold. They won the
Is
gold
that
medal.
high school or college?
This is college. My sophomore year in
College,
college.
yeah.
Yeah. So they had a pretty good team. You know, we were basically college guys, so they had
So what year was that?
2001.
Oh, okay. So that would have
2001.
been well before Yao made it to the league. Okay.
Yeah. He might have been. Was he in the league at the time? No, he wasn't. 2001.
Wasn't he drafted the same time LeBron was?
03 then, yeah.
Yeah.
02, 03, something like that.
Yeah, I haven't been to Europe in over 30 years, man. But you know, I've been to France, Belgium, Spain, England, and I don't know if
I've
you've been
never
to
been
any
to
of those.
England. No,
Yeah, it's
I was in
great.
Italy too. I was in
Yeah, I've always wanted to
Bologna.
go to Italy.
I was in Bologna for maybe a month and a half. I got hurt the first practice. This is weird thing about basketball overseas. They can be a real shady. A lot of the times they don't, you know, I've heard stories where guys don't get paid for months, and it's like, oh, we're going to pay you, and they'll pay you a little bit just to keep you there, and guys just leave. So luckily, I was fortunate enough I wasn't on a team where I had those problems, but I know a lot of guys that I were close to that went months without getting paid. So it's something that you have to deal with.
And then you don't want to just up and leave,
Yeah,
right?
because you're missing out.
'Cause
Like
you're-
if you owe me 40,000 or 20,000, whatever it may be, I want my 20,000. If I leave, guess what? I ain't getting nothing. If I stay, there's a chance they can owe me 50, but there's a chance I can get my 20,000 back or 10. I'll take 10. And a lot of guys got, you know, scammed and ripped off to the point where they didn't even want to go back overseas. And I would tell guys like, hey man, it's not like that everywhere. You know, that's just a small sample size to where there are some good teams, some good clubs, some good owners. You know, it's fun. You know, if you get to the right spot. It's just, unfortunately, you just, you know, end up on a bad team. But don't take that out on, you know, the opportunity to go somewhere else and have a good career.
Hey, we got a couple minutes left before we look at Prodigy and watch Prodigy. I wanted to ask about future maybe coaching. I know you did a little bit with the Pacers, right?
I did my first year after I got done playing. I did with the Phoenix Suns. So I was in Prescott for a year. Did that for a year, and then I took time off. Played a lot of poker. You know, tried to get back into the NBA coaching, and then did mortgages, and then the year before I was with the Pacers, so did coaching there, player development, video stuff, and it was an experience. But all that flying kind of got back to me. I was like, man, I do not miss all this, coming and going, getting back at 3:00, have to wake up at 10, wake up at, you get in at 4, you got to wake up at 9, and, it's just, you know, it's fun, but it's like, man, I want to do this again. I did this for 7, 8 years, and it's a lot of travel.
You never know. You might get the itch again.
Yeah. I mean, I'm volunteering right now at Francis Howell.
Oh,
so,
nice.
I'm just helping out there. I've been applying stuff around town. So if I don't get into coaching, broadcasting is something that I would, consider doing and looking into. So
yeah, that'd be
just
fantastic.
trying to get comfortable before I jump into, something that's gonna keep me occupied.
That's traveling also,
5.
unless you do something local.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping to do. So
yeah, it's cool to be back with the kids and high school stuff. Though I mean, that's
can't be away from the kids with a wife. It's like, come on back. You've been gone too long.
Hey, Russell. That was Earl Barron with us, with Clemson John and I. Man, we had an absolute blast talking with him last month. Hope everybody is enjoying their Saturday. Can't wait to get to Clemson John's picks today. But before that, we're going to show our interview with Evan Elder again. If you didn't get a chance to see this, make sure you watch this. Was a lot of fun with Evan Elder. All right. After that, we'll get back to Clemson John. But right now, Evan Elder is up. See, yep. And here he comes. Yeah, come on in, man. We're on live and ready to go. Yeah, jump on in. We got a lot of questions for you. Hopefully you can stick with us for the next hour. Yeah, we're gonna. I'm not gonna say tag team. But that would be. I don't want any part of that.
Well, if it was a 2-on-1 in a fight, I still would take him.
I would take him 5-on.
Yeah,
there's none of us.
It'd be a problem.
There's none of us.
It'd be a huge problem.
I know that Evan, you and I talked the other day, and we were talking about, and we'll get into more of this, but like what hurts and the injuries that last the longest. Yeah. And I asked you about the legs, leg kicks, right? Yeah, and that looks the most painful, and you told me that takes the longest to heal.
Yeah, I mean,
not the most painful.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, I guess it's all subjective. Pain itself is subjective. So, but me personally, I've had some of the injuries that take the longest for me are like low calf kicks.
Mm.
There's not much meat.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting a lot of like deep bone bruising. So it's stuff that you can usually work through in a fight. I think body shots are actually the most painful. Shots to the head actually probably do the most damage.
Mm-hmm.
But the legs and body, man, they are not fun to get hit in. So
now, in watching your fights, I love your jab. You got a great left. What would you say your biggest strength? And in reading some of the interviews that you've done in the past, and watching some of them, you seem to be a very well-rounded fighter, and not having necessarily the strict background like most guys come through wrestling or jiu-jitsu or boxing, whatever it might be. What do you think is the biggest strength of your game?
I think the well-roundedness, because exactly like you said, I'm really not. It's not that I'm great in any one specific area. I'm not a great striker. I'm not a great grappler. I'm not necessarily the best at anything. I don't have a pedigree in anything that I do. But I started in MMA, so I think the mixing, the blending is an art of itself. MMA, all martial arts have to be altered when combined all together in MMA. So I think the mix, the blend of everything is actually what I'd say is my strength, and what I have to really utilize the most to be able to hang with people that do have pedigrees, that are specialists in certain areas.
Right.
That if I can make them because I can outstrike you if I can get you thinking wrestling. I can out wrestle you if I can get you thinking wrestling. And then that applies to basically everything in MMA, I believe.
So how did you get kind of introduced to the sport? And then it's somewhat rare, being your age and in the UFC, to come up training for mixed martial arts. Like we were talking about, most people come from a specific background. How did you get into the sport?
I to me, I say it's God, because ever since I was like 6 years old, I've watching the fights with my dad on and just being just knowing, I was like, man, one day I'm going to be a champion in the UFC. Just always had this intuition of like, that's what I'm going to do. Like, there was no question. I was like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do. So, whenever I was younger, we waited until I could get in wrestling because my stepdad, being a slightly knowledgeable MMA fan, realized that wrestling was very dominant from a very since the beginning of the sport. So he was like, let's get you some sort of wrestling background, and we'll see how you do in that if you even really want to do this MMA stuff. Yeah. So. I had to wait till 7th grade year, and that was whenever my junior high school at Hillsborough started offering wrestling. So wrestled my 7th and 8th grade year, did fairly well, and we were like, all right, let's find a
And
MMA
then transition,
gym.
really.
Yep. So after that, I stopped wrestling like a moron. I wish I wouldn't have done that now, but it is what it is. I'm a firm believer everything happens for a reason, and I'm always where I'm supposed to be. So. After that, I guess at about 13 or 14, I started just full time with MMA and stuck with it since.
So
13.
Yeah.
You don't mind? I'm going to swap your.
Yeah.
Guys, get them
I can hear myself.
That's not going to work. All right. Do you want this on his?
It's fine. No.
Yeah. If you just move it a little, that one gets a little feedback. If you just move it away a little bit.
Yeah.
A little better.
Is that
Yeah.
okay? Can you hear him?
Yep.
Still hear me?
Yeah. Okay. All right. You're good.
So one
13.
question I had is, if you grew up watching it from age 6, what were the fighters that you grew up loving, aspiring? Because I got into the sport in early 2000s, kind of mid 2000s. So right when it was really picking up, and I remember watching the first season of The Ultimate Fighter, and the showcase between Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner, like the greatest fight ever at the end of that. And even before that, I was very invested because Matt Hughes was a guy from Hillsborough, Illinois. And I had an uncle a family from around that area, so I just knew of him. And then, of course, he had those legendary fights between him and GSP. So those were the guys that were like my idols growing up.
Yeah.
Going into Anderson Silva, I always tend towards the wrestlers because that's my background. I coach now, but love the sport. Just curious to hear who you loved watching growing up.
Yeah, whenever I was younger, I guess I was pretty young, but yeah, I can even remember back to, and a lot of it I'm sure stems from, just especially being that young, kind of liking the people that other people liked.
Right.
So I remember my stepdad was a huge fan of Tank Abbott.
Oh yeah,
so Tank Abbott,
legend.
Mark Coleman.
Yep.
And then later on, of course, or even Ken Shamrock.
Yep.
Just all the
staples.
The very common, known to the fans, since the beginning. But moving on a little bit later, I specifically remember Forrest Griffin, Stephen Bonner. That was like the fight that did it for me. That was like
saved the UFC.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, those two, a huge Forrest Griffin fan, just because of who he is as a person. On top of being a great fighter, he seems like an amazing guy. So, and then of course, the Iceman, Chuck Liddell. GSP is my favorite fighter of all time to this day. Rampage Jackson.
Such a good era between him
just,
and then and I really felt as though the Ultimate Fighter TV series helped in such a good way promote the brand, because it promoted the fighters and their personalities, and just kind of, I think Dana White has done it so well in creating what to me is just the best marketing effort for his fighters. I mean, it's fun to watch. There's so many good competitors, and now there's so much content to be consumed between the Contender Series, between your fight nights, between the Apex, of course the UFC cards. I mean, there's just so much going on.
There's a lot.
It's amazing.
It's almost honestly, it could be I really enjoy trying to keep up, and I try my best to, but man, I'll tell you what, sometimes the whole entire fight card every single weekend with and then you got the Contender Series on Tuesday nights whenever it's in season, the Ultimate Fighter. There's a lot.
There's so many fighters out there, man, which is
dude,
crazy.
It's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I love it, and I agree. I think that they do a spectacular job. So
Well, one guy whose career I've been following really since high school, and I talk about him all the time. I've talked about him on the show. Is Michael Chandler,
Yeah.
who I know you're familiar with, and you train with him, correct, down at Sanford?
Yeah, we trained at the same gym.
That's amazing.
It's now called Coco FC.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
No, you're
with,
right.
With,
You're right.
with Henry Hooft.
Yep.
And
Yes, sir.
phenomenal coach there.
Oh yeah.
What's that atmosphere like, training with those guys
it's
at the highest level?
It's unbelievable, man. I've been there for almost 4 years now, and still every day when I get on the mat, I'm just like, got to pinch myself just to make sure this is real life. I'm like, man, these guys that I literally grew up idolizing. I get to now share the same mats as them, and it's just, especially Michael Chandler. I went to high school about 15 minutes away from where Michael Chandler did, and as I was coming up, or as I was just getting started, he had just won the Bellator title. I remember I actually have an autographed poster of Michael Chandler in my garage hanging up. Like we had a little gym garage that my stepdad built, just a couple mats on the floor, a bag, and just had no idea what I was doing, just beating the crap out of stuff.
Love it.
And but Michael Chandler was up in there the whole time, man. I've looked up to that guy for a long time, and even more so now that I have actually had the opportunity and the pleasure to actually know him. And it's so much more to me. It's and I think many other fighters, but it's much more than just fighting. I think as long as you keep the traditional martial arts aspect of, you don't lose sight on the core values that martial arts teaches you. Martial arts is very analogous to life and is one of the best practices for everything outside the cage as well. So
100%.
So knowing somebody like Michael Chandler that is an exceptional fighter and even more so an exceptional human being is very inspiring to me, and has really showed me a lot of what I aspire to be. I hope that one day I can be great in all areas of life.
Yeah, well, he's always been an inspiration to me, and I remember watching him when I was in middle school at the state tournament, losing a state tournament finals match. And I had known them from growing up from wrestling. His brother Matt was close in age to me, and we had wrestled throughout. And then I went to a bunch of camps that Chandler was at, and then I actually went to his camp that he hosted right before he started at Bellator, right after he got out of Mizzou, at Northwest High School. So my ties to him go way back, and I remember right when he started fighting and got into Bellator and went on an insane streak, saying, this guy's for real. I mean, he's just, even in college, he was the hardest worker. He's a total hammer, and he just does everything right. All of the little things, diet, nutrition, taking care of your body, recovery, and then just living the right way. I think that goes a long way for
sure does.
Not just being a great fighter, but longevity. And he's been in the sport now however long. And it's very telling that I think he's not going to have that kind of long career without doing the little things the right way every single day. I mean, the guy is as disciplined as anyone I've ever seen.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that the little things get very commonly overlooked. Especially something I think about now is at a high level, everybody's going to do the hard stuff. That's what's required. You know that you're not gonna accomplish anything if you're not doing these incredibly hard endeavors. Everybody's going to show up to practice. Everybody's going to work super hard. Everybody's going to train twice a day. Everybody's going to give everything they got in those regards. But how can you take that a step further and try to further the gap between you and your competitor? And it's going to be all the little things. What's your warm-up routine look like? What's your recovery routine look like? What's your nutrition look like? Are you, how many hours a night are you sleeping? Are you not staying out and partying? Are you not enjoying the luxuries that a lot of that this lifestyle brings you? And staying disciplined just in all areas. And he's definitely one that does that.
Oh, 1,000%. And it's
All right, one more tweet.
You're
I'll
good.
leave you alone. I
No,
promise.
I'm messing everything up.
It's interesting because it is going to a card like today. You see someone like Adesanya, who has really gone from I wouldn't say nothing. He obviously had that illustrious kickboxing career, but the level of fame and money and stardom, do you think that is a distraction for a guy like that? Or is he coming into this fight focused, ready to go?
I think it's everything's subjective, man. It's everything can be good or bad on it's completely up to the individual and how you handle it. So I think that yeah, of course there is more opportunity to probably mess up, and it's easier to be tempted with the number and the amount of temptations that that fame and the having the finances, to do whatever you want. I'm sure I can't speak from experience, but I could just imagine that as your fame and wealth grow, so do the temptations to pull you off of that path that got you there in the first place. So I could see it, but I also think to me, the level of competitor it takes to rise to the top of what is, in my opinion, the hardest sport in the world, I would imagine that dude is dialed in. Like
Okay.
he ain't worried about, that dude ain't doing nothing but punching people and watching anime. Like he's not worried.
That is true. That's
I,
his thing.
he ain't worried about. I doubt that he's allowing any external distractions to pull him off course, especially with what is probably his most challenging fight to date.
Well, and it's interesting because outside of his champ status title shot with Blachowicz, it doesn't seem as though he's had much of a challenge to date. He's had a couple of scraps, but it seems to me as though he's really cleared out the division. He's just head and shoulders above everybody else at that 185-pound limit. I mean,
yeah, I would agree. I think that not to discredit any of his competitors, because even just to be in the UFC is just to even make it to the UFC, you have to be a very high level competitor, let alone to be in the top 15 of those. So you're talking about separating yourself from people that are already incredible competitors, uncommon amongst uncommon.
Yep.
So those guys are obviously worthwhile and worthy competitors. But yeah, I think that his striking pedigree and the way that he just gets it, man, he's got something figured out to where his level of intelligence and his striking game, especially for mixed martial arts, is just, coupled with his physical attributes, his length.
yeah, 6'4",
Yeah,
right?
the reach.
Yep.
Yeah, he's a nightmare for
Yeah.
most, man. He's very, and he's smart. He stays very disciplined in the sense of not trying to necessarily always fight for the fans. He's like, I'm gonna do my job and I'm gonna win. And that's why, he's gotten a little bit of criticism here lately with, taking fights at a distance. And but man, you get guys that at 185 pounds, they're not 185 pounds.
Oh,
It's the
heck
same
no.
way. I'm a little over 180 right now. I fight at 155.
I was going to ask you about that.
That was going to be my next question.
Wait. Let me reach in. So, Nikki Leonard, shouting out to
Yeah. Oh, Nikki. Hey, what's up, Nikki?
There you go.
Am I good?
You're good now.
All right, thank you. Are we okay? I wanted to ask you about. We talk about weight. I don't understand how you weigh in and then gain all this weight. So let's talk about. We've talked this extensively about. I want to get into. First of all, I want to know, like, we're going to talk about your regimen, a daily regimen, but let's talk about the weight first. I don't understand. You fight at 155. And you have to drop weight to make weight, and then you can do whatever you want after that. Let's talk a little bit about that, Evan.
Yeah, it don't make any sense.
That's
all
it. That was a long question to get that, right?
Just to keep it simple.
Let's go to break. Okay.
Yeah, man. I have a very, very much so a love-hate relationship with cutting weight. I think that for me personally, going back to what me and Michael were just talking about with all these other little hidden discipline factors, I think it's another opportunity for you to separate yourself from other competitors, because not only does it take an immense amount of discipline, but also education. Like there's so much science that goes into all of it that you have to take the time to properly educate yourself. And then the even harder step is to have the discipline to apply the actions once you acquire that knowledge, just like with any knowledge. And then there's a freaking even more science the week of the fight with manipulating the water weight, and it's just, and I really do think it's really dumb. I think it's especially with the way that a lot of people, unfortunately, we're not just in general, we're not taught very much about nutrition, so let alone how to manipulate your body in a way that you're trying to completely get rid of as much body fat as possible, and then also put yourself in a state to where you're going to be retaining as little water weight as possible. And then also on the flip side of that, directly afterwards, trying to rehydrate and refuel and put back on as much as possible.
Right.
The huge influxes and the extremes on each side. I think as most things, the extremes are usually where the problems lie.
Right.
And but like I said, I think it's a part of the game. I don't think it'll ever go away. I think there can be ways to address it to where maybe it can be less extreme or to help fighters out. But I think for the foreseeable future, I can't imagine it changing. ONE FC has a pretty decent model from what I've seen.
With the hydration test? Is that
Yeah,
right?
with the hydration test. We have a lot of fighters at our gym and stuff that fight for ONE FC, so I've gotten a little bit of an insight on that. But so they essentially fight a weight class up, which is very nice. It just keeps you from. They're trying to keep people from cutting water weight because really that is mostly the most dangerous part.
Right.
Is
Yeah.
dehydrating yourself, especially going into a freaking fist fight the next day. It's like we're mostly comprised of water, and so I mean it makes sense that this is such a vital aspect of
I'm
our.
mostly comprised of McDonald's.
Yeah, I'm a lot of. There's a lot of Bud Light.
Yeah,
in my
hey,
veins,
that's
I mean,
but,
so
listen,
your daily.
we're not
your-
all professionals, you
Yeah,
know?
I mean,
We're not all
well,
pro athletes.
Right. We might be professionals.
It's not pro
totally
athletes.
So, talking about that, so I'm curious, like your daily routine, and you can't really, especially getting ready for a fight, you can't really vary from it, right? So, what's a day in your life
Well,
like? I'm
Can
curious.
I? May
Yeah.
I? I
Yeah.
think if you could walk us through what fight week looks like,
Yeah,
and just kind of that.
that's a good.
What do you
yeah.
What do you walk in? What do you start fight week at? And then what is that kind of final process of getting to
For the weight,
weigh-ins?
you mean?
Yeah, for
Okay.
prior to weigh-in.
So for the weight cut, fight week, if I could be 170 by the time fight week starts, so about 15 pounds out.
Hydrated
I'm looking,
170?
Yeah, of
Okay.
course. Yeah, so that's like with a water load.
Got it.
So I'll try
No
to
large
be
Coke.
no large
no
Coke.
large
I'm saving
Coke.
that. I try to avoid the soda now, anyways.
Yep.
I used to be an avid soda drinker,
Yeah.
and that was like the hardest part of cutting weight.
You
was
got
not
to
being
get
able
rid
to
of that
drink
sweet
soda.
tooth if you're going to be in the UFC.
Yeah, I think honestly, man, as I've learned more about nutrition and the importance of it and taking care of your health, not even just as a professional, especially as a professional athlete, but just overall, man, it's just so crucial to pay attention to everything that we put in our body, and especially, anyways, that's a whole other topic. Sorry.
Yeah, no.
So fight week. If I could be about 170 going into fight week, about 15 pounds out, I will usually go no carb and have to just try to cut those last couple pounds of body fat. Usually, if I can get another 4 to 5 off and get within about 10 pounds of the weight limit, I can usually sauna and sweat the last 10 pounds off, with the water manipulation. But usually about 15 pounds out the start of the week, and I'll lose 3, 4, 5 more pounds throughout the week as long as everything goes according to plan. And then
I'll get it later.
And then I'll cut the last 10 the day of weigh in, and then rehydration. So directly off the scale, your first focus is to rehydrate. So just like we were talking about, as it's the most important, that's the first thing you want to start putting back in your body is the water, the electrolytes, making sure your body's retaining that water, not just putting it in there. And then work on refueling. You'll start having a lot of carb heavy meals, and that's actually not really a time. I'm a big advocate for vegetables and all kinds of phytonutrients and making sure we're eating the correct things. But that's really right now, after depleting yourself that severely, you need to focus on the macros and get a ton of carbohydrates back in. So
Does vegetable fried rice count?
It's.
I mean, I'm being funny, but I'm serious, right? Can you get it? I know fried foods probably aren't, but yeah.
No, I personally wouldn't because of
his stomach would
your stomach
explode
would
if
not
you
feel good.
If you go from eating as clean and as pure as they do,
Are you
and,
saying I don't?
depleting.
I
Hey,
mean-
I love
I mean,
chicken
really,
fried
I
rice.
mean,
I love it.
I think everybody will get down on some chicken fried rice. So
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah,
worry
so
about that.
when you are doing the weight cut and you haven't had your carbs or you haven't eaten, like, what's the food you crave the most? I'm always curious.
Exactly those things.
Really?
The carbs.
The carbs.
The
Pizza, things
not
like
necessarily. Honestly, no, not even that. Just like good man. Whenever I can't have carb, because I mean, to me, that's our number one
That's
energy
energy.
source. So
Yeah.
so I don't care about eating anything. The way it tastes. I'm caring about feeling good.
right.
And so just really good fruits and sweet potatoes, rice, anything, any good clean carbohydrate, good
Yeah.
source of energy, because you feel every bit of not having that energy.
Oh yeah.
And
absolutely.
and I mean, from wrestling, like there's
Notice he didn't look at me when he said that.
hey,
You're the picks guy. You're the talent.
I mean,
you know?
he's directed over there. I mean, all the health questions are ended up that way.
I am a long way from my 125 pounds wrestling days.
Is that what you wrestled at?
I wrestled 125.
Wow.
Yeah. And I cut a significant amount of weight for, not significant for what you guys do, but for high school. And the difference is, I guess, you step on the scale, you got an hour, and then you
don't
wrestle.
get 24
so
hours.
you don't
to
have the
refuel.
full recovery time. And,
Yeah.
I
think
it was tough.
wrestling. I say MMA is the hardest sport in the world, or one of them for sure. But wrestling's right there with it.
It's good for your character.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, I love the saying. I'm sure you've heard it. Once you've wrestled, everything else in life is easy.
That's right, Dan Gable.
Yeah,
That's right.
Well, I promise you, when we watch your next fight, which we're going to talk about here in a
Oh,
second,
yeah.
because it has been scheduled.
Yep.
Right. I promise you, while you are fighting, I will have a cheeseburger and pizza in
I
front
appreciate
of the
you
TV.
honoring me that
yes,
way.
Yep.
I will be
And a
thinking
beer.
of you.
And a beer. I'll do a shoey when you win.
Heck yeah, let's go.
So
Tai Tui Basa
we
style.
got that covered for you, and just think, channel all that energy you would get from that
Yes, sir.
crap.
Yep.
We're doing it for you.
Thank you. I
All right.
appreciate that.
All right. Let's talk about your next fight. It's scheduled.
Yep.
Micah, I know you're looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to this.
I am.
I
And
can't. What's
I
the
wanna
guy's
hear,
name? What's his name?
Azim Sadikov.
Sadikov. And that's a scary name for me.
It is. I immediately was like, man.
I don't like that. I don't like that. Anyone. Well, first off, there's been some famous wrestlers from Russia that have been Sadikov, but it's just anytime you have a name like that, it scares me a little
I'm
bit.
very geographically illiterate. I believe he's from Azerbaijan.
Yes.
If I said
Yes.
that correctly, which I probably
Where's
didn't.
that?
Azerbaijan.
Is it just outside?
It's like I want to say that it's
Russia?
a Russian sect, like a Dagestan, or
I
it's right
hope
in the
we're not
area.
messing
Okay,
this
so he
up.
says these guys train with bears.
I
I mean,
The Habib.
I mean,
yeah,
Khabib is notorious for.
I mean, what's going on
bear
there?
wrestling.
What's your training regimen like?
Yeah.
You train with a bear?
How do you
I
beat
do not.
somebody who?
I-
How do you beat somebody who wrestles bears as a kid? You know.
Yeah, I mean that's why Khabib
Okay,
is who he is.
so knowledgeable questions? Absolutely not knowledgeable.
Hey,
questions.
they're both. It's important. The yin to the yang. You gotta have both. Life is about balance.
That's
So
Okay?
I've learned so
it's
much.
about eating good and having the cheeseburger. It's about solid questions and funny questions.
There you
Yeah,
go.
there we go. Okay. I mean, I can get serious with.
Water, soda, anything?
You need anything to
I'll
drink?
take a water.
I'm all right.
Yeah. I mean, it's not all about. I mean, I can be serious. I try not to be. Right? No, but I am curious. Right? You're talking to somebody who's new to the sport, and I am curious, like what you have to go through to be at your level. I mean, it just absolutely astonishes me how you have to live your life, and you have to change the way everything that you do. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
I one of my favorite quotes, and I think it sums up. Like I said, I think fighting is the most analogous thing to life, the most closely comparable thing to life. So I every time I talk about fighting, I think that you could just scratch out fighting and put in whatever other area of life you want to. So, but I heard a saying, to be successful is easy. It just takes everything you've got. And I love that. I think that's exactly true with, especially with what we do, man. It's like, you don't have to, work hard. You don't have to be disciplined. You don't have to dedicate yourself fully, but you also don't have to win. You also don't have to be successful. You don't have to do any of these things. None of it's promised. Every bit of it's earned. And
Why did he look at me when he said all that?
I was going back and forth.
This is actually an
You don't
intervention.
have to be successful. You don't
This is
have
a
to work
therapy
hard.
session,
You don't
yeah.
have to do
No, you
anything.
Yeah.
You're working harder than I am.
Yeah.
Well,
that's
you can
not-
tell
that's not true.
you've been hanging out with Chandler because talk about a motivational guy. And the only thing you left out there was small kid from a small town who was taught to do small things. He loves
Yeah,
saying that, and
yeah.
it's true.
Yeah, it is.
And I think you're also a perfect example of somebody who, for me, I probably had a similar outlook on watching the UFC growing up, being a wrestler and saying like, man, that's what I wanted to do. And I got hit in the face a few times and I was like, maybe I'll just talk about it. I'll let you guys handle that kind of action. But it's very clear that you spent a good amount of time with Chandler just based on the way you talk. And
Oh,
he's
thank you.
very similar. And I mean that as a compliment because what an upstanding guy.
Oh,
I mean,
thank you, man.
love
Yeah,
that
no,
guy.
he's an incredible guy,
Yeah.
and he's definitely helped me a lot in the sense of even just giving me the direction of man, he really did something that probably impacted me much more than he even knows. But he gave me a copy of Zig Ziglar's book, "See You at the Top," where he got his infamous saying, "See you at the top."
See you at the top.
Man, I love that. But wrote me a little note in it, and it really inspired me to really be great in all areas of my life.
Mhm.
Just to, I think that everything happens for a reason. And I'm very thankful for. Thank you, buddy. Very thankful for the way everything has ever played out in my life because I think every single event, every single situation, circumstance, whatever you want to say, has had to happen in order for me to get to wherever
Mhm.
I'm at now, whether that be good or bad. But uh, for most of my life until I was 21 or so, 22 even, I was completely just focused on being the best fighter I could be.
Mhm.
And then I got some great mentors, some people like Michael Chandler that, kind of helped me realize and open my eyes to like, man, there's a lot of other areas you need to be great at and great
Mhm.
in. Like this stuff is much more important than just fighting.
Yep.
There's a lot of fighters that are great fighters that unfortunately haven't put that same discipline and effort that they put into their training that they do into other areas. And that was like one of the biggest shifts and kind of a paradigm shift for me and just life in general is just like I was saying, I mean, I've beaten a dead horse with it, but like fighting is just so relatable to everything else in life. It's like, now that I've gotten reps and understand how to be good in this area, take that and apply all those same
Mhm.
that same discipline to everything else you do.
Mhm.
And man, that's been a kind of a cornerstone for me, like
Yeah.
a turning point.
One of
So-
my reasons for I'm sorry, Dave. One of
No,
my
it's fine.
reasons for being so in love with the sport is watching guys like yourself or watching guys like Chandler, who's had his setbacks throughout his career, and he went that 688 days, which he talks about, of without a win, and prior to that had kind of been a skyrocket, hadn't taken any losses, and then all of a sudden hits a big dip. And to see kind of that is a pure reflection of life, right? There is
Yeah.
ups, there is downs,
Yep.
and it's really a matter of how are you going to attack the day and how are you going to continue to improve despite setbacks. And
Yeah.
that's the beautiful, horrible part of the sport,
Yep. And
All
life.
right, real quick. This is amazing, right? And it's flying by.
Could
But
do it all day.
I want to get to his fight. We
Yep.
got a lot to
Please.
get to. I
I'm
wanna get-
terrible. I tend to veer off.
No, that's great. I mean, it's just amazing how this is flying by, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're having so much fun for sure. And I'm so glad you're in town. Just happened to be in town from Florida.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
worked
We
out
were going to
really
do this.
well.
We were
Yeah.
going to do it remotely.
Yeah. So this worked out amazing. But I can't pronounce the guy's name. Well, I'm sorry. What's the guy's name? He's
Nazim
Sadikov.
What do we know about this guy?
He's traditional southpaw, so he's a left-handed fighter. Keeps a good high tight guard. He's got good power in his left hand. He's got solid boxing. Throws good spinning kicks. Seems like he's got good top pressure on the ground. I haven't personally seen him too much on the bottom, but. He's tough, man. He's good. He's solid. I mean, man, like I was saying,
All these guys.
You get in the UFC, you're there for a reason. Like you don't.
There's no easy fights.
It's very, very hard to stumble your way into the UFC. Like you don't
Can't
just
be done
accidentally. And then especially I've heard people talk about like champions in the UFC of like, oh, he's not actually that good. He's just kind of like, he's just had things work out in his favor. I'm like,
Whoa.
even if he has the greatest luck in the world, you don't just accidentally find yourself in a position like that. So, I mean, so to wrap this back, bring this back around because I'm getting off of the.
That's
Oh,
okay.
okay.
You're
It's
good.
all right.
That's why we have you here.
Hey, listen, we're used to hearing this show is I'm the one that's long-winded. So, no, it's great. No, we love
This
it.
is all
Loving
good
every
insight
second.
from.
Yeah.
We don't get the behind-the-scenes look
Yeah.
all
no.
the time. So for
I mean,
me, it's this is what we live
I've
for.
learned so much on the outside of the sport from Micah and the Prodigy, which you guys, he's been on many times already. So I've learned so much in such a short time about the sport, and then talking with you away from here, and I've just become an incredible fan. Now I want to learn more. Now I want to learn. But having the insight from the inside, this is pretty incredible. I know that Mike and I and everybody else is having a great time listening to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
And when is that fight? Is it
February
scheduled?
18th.
February 18th?
Yeah.
Okay. We got to figure out where we're going to be to make sure. Where is it at? Where's the
It's
fight
going to be
at?
at the Apex.
At the Apex?
Vegas.
In Las Vegas.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a terrible place. Yeah. Yeah.
The fight capital.
Yeah.
Although tonight the MMA leader once again descends on the city that never sleeps here in New York, Madison Square Garden. It's going to be a big event, 281. How are we feeling about it?
Those
I
fights are tonight,
I know.
dude.
All right.
I know.
We got
Crap.
about 15 minutes.
Okay.
So let's roll through the card.
Yep.
Micah, as we talk about each fight, go ahead and give your pick for the fight.
Okay.
And after you guys, I'm going to let you guys
Let
go
me
at
make
it.
sure I pull it up.
And if I have anything, I'll throw it in there. But yeah, you got about 15 minutes to cover the
All
card.
right. So a couple things on today. One, this could be a big hit or miss week for me, but I'm going for value, Dave. I know you love yourself some good value.
Yeah, always.
So that's what I am looking for here. Now we got, I believe, kicking off the card, we have Claudio Puelles.
Yep. Claudio Puelles, my boy.
This is for
Prince of Peru, baby.
Yep, the Prince of Peru. That's kicking off the main card against Dan Hooker, a legend in his own right. The guy,
Yes.
anytime, any place, anywhere.
Yeah, I
Send
love
anyone
Dan
you
Hooker,
want.
man.
Just don't send anyone you want back. Dan Hooker, coming up from 145, which I thought was an interesting. Right? He cut down to featherweight, which
He has, yeah.
he's huge
he's
for
huge.
lightweight. I
He's
mean,
huge.
he's like
I don't
6'1",
even know.
6'2" for
I
lightweight.
really don't know how he was able to make 145. And we've seen it many times where just because you can doesn't always mean you should.
Yep.
And especially when it comes to weight cutting, man, it's like I've had people tell me I should go to 45, and I'm like, maybe I could possibly do it, but it's not worth the return. The return on investment is not going to be there.
Ask,
it's like you're
ask
gonna
TJ
deplete yourself.
Dillashaw or Garbrandt or any of
We've
those
seen
guys.
it just too many times,
Yeah.
And I think at a certain point, man, just especially for myself here lately, man, I'm just seeing the value in just being healthy.
Yeah.
And
100%.
not just in fighting, but in life,
Yeah.
man. It's like just be healthy.
Yep.
And it literally affects every single thing you do, especially something as extreme as a freaking fighting another world-class competitor. You have to be as healthy as you can be. So yeah, I'm glad that Dan Hooker's back at 55 because I think already 155 is a stretch. I'm sure that dude walks around above 180.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. He's huge. So, Dave, to your point, for that
I'm
card,
listening.
I'm gonna do something a little bit, maybe a little bit that the fans might not love, but I'm taking Claudio Puelles, Prince of Peru. I'm taking him by submission. He's got a dirty ground game, and
man, his grappling,
it's next level.
Yeah.
So I'm taking Claudio Puelles by submission. That's a plus 130.
All right.
And then next fight on the card, we got just an absolute legend in Frankie Edgar versus Chris Gutierrez. What can you say about Frankie other than he's just a staple of the sport?
Yeah,
I mean, he should
really
be on
is,
the
man.
Wait, who we on?
the next fight. We got Frankie Edgar versus
Okay,
Chris Gutierrez.
gotcha.
We're going through the main card here.
Okay.
So Frankie Edgar versus Chris Gutierrez. Edgar, UFC Hall of Fame, former lightweight champion. Love the guy. He's fighting. This is his retirement fight. I think he's going to bring it. He's a plus 200, and I'm taking, maybe it's my heart speaking, but I'm taking Edgar both for the value and for just all that he's given to the sport. I think he's going to go out there and leave it all in the octagon
You got
today.
it by decision?
I got him by decision.
Yeah. Yeah, man. For Frankie, I hope that you're right.
I'm
I
saying
love-
it with my heart. He's taking
It's
some
hard
lumps.
not to, man.
Yeah.
It's hard not to. I mean, you can't not love that guy.
He's fighting in his own
You
backyard.
can't not, man. Like
Yep.
he's a staple of the sport. Like you're saying, he's fought all the way from 135 to 155, been a champ. He's the man.
Yep.
And he's always had a great attitude. Like he never has anything bad to say about people. Just a class act.
Yep.
And I really hope for him that his retirement fight goes well.
Yep.
He can leave on a good note. With that being said,
Gutierrez, it's a tough out.
it's a
tough out.
fight, man. And Father Time is undefeated, and,
Yep.
and Frankie is.
I know, look at me.
unfortunately-
You're still
You gotta be
standing.
nice to yourself.
You're still standing.
I'm just a realist, man. You hit
Hey,
50.
we can be real and still,
Yeah.
still
I
shows
mean,
ourselves some compassion.
51 years old, and I'm
Yeah.
doing pretty good.
But to Edgar's point, or to Frankie, phenomenal wrestler, D1 wrestler, got a great pedigree there. I saw in Chris Gutierrez's fight against Cody Durden, I believe, taken down, controlled pretty handily by someone who's not as skilled of a wrestler as Edgar. I think if he's going to get this win, which I'm hoping, I'm praying, and I'm betting that he will, I think he's going to take it to the mat and control Gutierrez for the majority of the fight, win by decision, and that is Frankie Edgar plus, what was the line here? I'm sorry.
Well, just to
Plus
win,
200.
he's just to win, he's plus
200.
Yeah,
So win by decision.
probably going to get a much better price if
Yep.
you just
Yep.
That's
Win
all
by
right. We
decision.
we can find it out. Yeah, I'll find it out.
Man, I'll tell you what, something I'd like to touch on just real quick, since we're talking about, man, I think something that a lot of people, just the casual fans, don't really understand is there's so much that goes into it that each fight is so much different. You
Mhm.
better hope that you show up on that night
Mhm.
because it is really easy to have an off night.
Yep.
Like it is like you can have all the skills in the world, everything will be great, and those nerves hit you for some reason.
Yep.
Whenever you walk out, like
Yep.
you didn't do enough mental preparation. There's just so much
Yep.
that goes.
Maybe you
into
just
it.
didn't sleep right. Maybe you don't feel.
Well,
Maybe you caught a little.
My
bug,
feeling
whatever.
is, I can't speak for you, but I mean, I would think like the crowd, the cameras, everything around you. Once the bell rings or once you start, I would think you're like zoned in. There's nobody else but you two.
You are, but it plays a huge role leading up into it.
Mhm.
So like all that stuff, all the crowd, the cameras, like can have your man. We are such unbelievable creatures to where little things can affect us at a very deeply subconscious,
Mhm.
in a deeply subconscious way. To where like
Yeah.
we have no idea that all that stuff actually bothered us or affected us in some way, but our body knows.
Yep.
And we will pay the price for it. Even if you're not, my last fight, for example, I had the worst adrenaline dump I've ever had in my life. I let all the moment get to me, and I promise you, like literally as the fight was starting, Herb Dean was like, "You ready to fight? You ready to fight?" And I was like, "I don't know if I can put my arms
You're
up."
like, I'm not.
I was
no.
so exhausted
Yep.
from the nerves.
Yep.
There was no physical exertion done yet. The fight hadn't even started, and my arms were so heavy, and from just pressure.
So you
from
learn
the
from that,
nerves.
right?
Oh yeah.
So now
it was
you know how to
one of the
approach
best
it.
things that ever
Yeah,
happened to me.
right?
For sure. Yeah.
So now here we go.
Yeah.
Start over.
But I just
right?
wanted to emphasize that because that can happen it happens even at the highest level.
It
of
does.
people
With
still-
experience.
With
Yep.
experience, and
Yep.
it's like it just like, oh crap, I let it get me.
Yep.
Like, and it's like it's too late by the time you figure it out.
And I've even experienced it at my very average level of wrestling. It's
Oh,
it's one of
100%.
those things you go out on the mat and for whatever reason you just don't feel right. Maybe you have a quick first period and all of a sudden you're just spent for whatever reason. It's.
Well, I mean, think
could be
about the
nerves.
pressure. Think about the pressure you put on yourself, even public speaking.
Right.
Like getting in front of somebody and like talking like, oh, I don't know how this is going to go.
Mhm.
Let alone when you're about to get in a car accident of a freaking fist fight. Whatever, I think that's one of my favorite ways to explain
That's
fighting
what it's
now. It's
essentially
like
what it is.
It is like you basically go to practice every day and get into a bunch of 40-mile-an-hour car accidents
Mhm.
and car crashes, so you can get ready to prepare yourself for an 80-mile
Evan,
car crash.
I'm gonna tell you what. I'll watch it on TV.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's
Good
what I
luck to
said.
you.
Yeah, it's dope.
That's why I like wrestling. There's not a lot of that.
But thank you for putting on, and doing this for us, right?
For sure.
I mean,
Well, thank you
what-
guys.
Yeah, it's. I'm a big fan now, and I mean, just my friend David Sanders has been trying to get me into this for years. The first experience I've ever really watched a card was Conor McGregor at his house, and I'm like, it didn't click, and then here, it just started to click, and how interesting it is. I've always been a boxing guy. So now, I mean, I can't wait to your fight. I mean, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
I'm excited.
I might.
excited as well.
I'd love to be in Vegas with you. Yeah.
Unfortunately, the Apex is very.
It's small, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Limited.
You already got disinvited. Did you hear
There-
that?
yeah, that's right.
exactly what
That's
I heard.
exactly right,
You're
yeah.
not invited.
Hey,
That's what I heard. I don't know what you guys heard. I heard like stay in St.
Buy
Louis.
the pay-per-view. Buy the pay-per-view, Dave.
yeah.
Yeah,
No,
like everybody
that's all right.
else. It's a
I
fight
get
night.
it.
There
All
you go.
right.
It's a fight night.
Yeah,
There you
whatever.
go.
Yeah, you guys.
Yeah, but Dave
talk.
still has to pay for it.
Yeah, you guys. All right. Next
so
fight.
next fight. This is the fight. I think this is the people's choice fight. One that I've been looking forward to quite literally going on a decade. We got Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler. We've already sung Chandler's praises. Let's talk a little bit about Poirier coming in as a minus 215 favorite over Chandler. What are your thoughts on Dustin?
Man, I'm a huge fan of Dustin Poirier.
He's a
too,
stud.
man. He's a stud and a class act of a dude. This is I agree with you 100%. This is the people's main event, man.
Yep.
This is the fight that everybody wants to see. And you know what's so funny already? I know this is what's gonna happen. This fight's gonna be so nuts that we're gonna be like, oh my god, holy crap! We have 2 more fights left on the card.
Well,
Like,
I hate to be anyone that follows this fight
yeah,
because these
try
are
to live up
truly,
to it.
and for anyone out there listening or thinking about watching, these are 2 of the most, if not the most, exciting fighters on the planet.
Yeah.
They only have one speed, and that's all gas.
Yep.
It's going to be a beautiful
Me
car
too.
crash that you were talking about.
I
You're
can't help
bringing
it.
it on yourself.
You're laying up
You're bringing it on
softballs for
yourself.
me.
That's
I can't.
true.
I
put
can't.
that on a team.
I know. Yeah. I
But-
mean, I can't help myself. I'm
But
sorry.
these guys, they don't know quit. They don't know how to slow down. And I'm taking, and I have to again, like I said, there's going to be a little bit of choosing here with my heart, but I'm going to take Chandler. I like the idea. I'm sorry, Chandler by KO or TKO plus 380.
Wow.
Yep. And then
Plus
it's
380?
plus 950 for decision or for submission. Excuse me, submission. Now I think if you're a betting man,
That's
That-
worth.
it's not a
bet.
bad one to throw down because it's plus
He rocks
950,
Poirier,
and I
he
could
gets
see him
turns, gets
clipping
his
him
back
and
chokes
a
him out.
choke, and I could see it going either way.
Yeah.
I love the idea of getting that plus 1,000 for a submission, and it's also
Only for Chandler, or is it submission for either one of them getting a submission?
I believe the Poirier submission was like plus 900, so it's crazy high.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely
everyone's
don't see it.
no,
I don't see it going
everyone's
that way.
expecting this to be a knockdown, drag out
Yeah.
war, not going the distance. Most people are having it not going the distance. So if you want to get involved in that, I like the fight to end in round 2. That's a plus 300. Both of these guys.
And that
have
doesn't matter
been-
who wins. Just
Correct.
ends in round 2.
Fight ends in round 2.
All right.
And then Chandler via decision is a plus 500. So again, they're both durable guys. They're both tough guys. I just
Look at the
think
fight with Gaethje, man. You would have
That's-
never in your life thought that thing was going to go. that
nobody
way.
survives that, right?
Nobody. There's
So-
no way. Even as the fight's happening, you're like, this is going to end immediately.
Not a bad money line.
No,
Just
man.
to think that I don't know that either one of them knows how to quit. So unless you
Oh,
put their
yeah.
lights out,
I 100% agree with that.
they're
You
not
would
going
not-
anywhere.
I'll tell you what, man. Those 2 dudes, man. I appreciate. I can appreciate it so much because I'm in it, and I hope everybody else can too. Because like those 2 guys, the level of not just competitor, but the level of just a human being those 2 people is unbelievable. 2 of the greatest people in the world.
Yep.
Because the willingness to endure suffering and just to never quit on you, and most likely because of what you have attached yourself to. It's so much bigger than just yourself.
Mhm.
You know, they've attached themselves to their family, the people that support them, the everything that they've ever done their whole life. You know, it's like it's so much bigger than them, and that's the only way that you could ever have a will to compete like that.
Yep.
To just never give up and endure all things, no matter what the price.
Totally agree. Love both guys. Shout out to Happen Ace. Big fans of your dad. I'll be pulling for him tonight. I'm taking Chandler by KO or TKO plus 380. For the fight to end in round 2 is plus 200. And then for the fight to end via decision is plus 500. All of those good value.
Okay, I like it. Next up.
Next up, we got the Carla Esparza versus Zhang Wei Li. Zhang Wei Li comes in as a minus 340 favorite for very obvious reasons. Carla Esparza plus 280. I don't like betting on this fight, Dave, frankly, because I don't see any situation where Esparza beats Wei Li. I mean, she is tough, but 35, she's just coming off what is known as the worst title fight performance in history in a very, very boring fight with Rose Namajunas.
Okay.
To me, she's just a little bit timid. I think Zhang Wei Li, now training with Henry Cejudo, former Olympic world champion wrestler, so she's rounded out her game. She's going to be too much. I wouldn't even bet that if I were you guys. And then I'm going down to Israel Adesanya finally versus Alex Pereira for the UFC middleweight strap. We got Izzy coming in at a minus 215, Pereira coming in at a plus 185. Important storyline here. Izzy has never been, Izzy minus 215, Pereira plus 185. So Izzy's favorite.
I comprehended that wrong.
Interesting component on that is that Pereira, for those of you who don't know, has already defeated Izzy twice, but this was in kickboxing. One was a controversial decision. This is years ago. And then another one was a flatline KO that I had not really been familiar with Alex Pereira, but I certainly knew who he was just because of that KO that he had over Izzy. A lot of people think this is going to be the guy who gives Izzy the most trouble. I tend to agree. I still like Adesanya by KO or TKO plus 360.
Oh, wow.
So
yeah, that's good value.
Say that again.
Value.
Say that again.
Adesanya,
Okay.
who is the favorite, but
Yep.
by TKO or KO plus 360. Again, it's a 5-round fight, so he's going to have a lot of opportunities. I think he's going to be pretty measured those first 2 rounds, getting the feel for his distance. And then I think this is an exciting one because both guys are elite, the elite of the elite in striking, but
especially for MMA.
For MMA. Both kickboxing pedigree at the highest level. Pereira, only a year and a half ago, was a kickboxing world champion, and to make that transition has already showcased that he's earned this spot, and it's going to be a fun one. But I think if Izzy continues to be on the roll that he's on, I just like that line at plus 360 for a KO or TKO because it's a 5-round fight.
Yeah, I can get behind any of that just because, I mean, I would almost normally never bet against Adesanya, and